Welcome to the Deep Focus podcast. It's a new month, which means it's Q&A time.
Woo,
Let's
woo, woo.
go. I don't know what that sound was, Murad, but we will forgive you again.
It's
You do get a couple drop balls per episode. But first,
Five God on the beat.
welcome everyone to this beautiful Thursday afternoon. First week of May, which means we're getting a little closer to summer. Hopefully that means we will actually get some time to be outside. You will not get a it's going to be blank reference from me because it's dumb. I'm not for it. I'm sure Justin Timberlake thinks it's dumb for one reason, really. He doesn't say May, he says me. So
Mhm.
I want to clear that up. As always, I'm your host, Varun, with my boy Murad. What up, man?
What's up? What's up? What's up? How you doing?
I'm good, man. No, what you been up to this week? Watching anything new?
You know what? I was gonna ask you that because I was listening to our podcast and we haven't asked each other that question in a
No,
while. So
no, we
it's
haven't. Yeah, good call.
so
I thought the same thing.
I'm glad you brought it up. I think we talked about Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I think it's far enough out of it so that I don't have to say that that's new to me anymore. I've been
Mhm.
watching that John Stamos Disney Plus show. I'm not sure if you've seen
How
it.
was that? Yeah, how was that? The basketball
It's
coach one,
Yeah,
right?
the basketball coach one. Honestly, it's good, but it's the exact opposite of Ted Lasso. You know what I mean? And we were talking about Ted Lasso last week. And so Ted Lasso is like super kind and very caring, and his players always give him hell. This is the exact opposite. He's like an NCAA, like weathered coach, very like it's my way or the highway type mentality. I like it. It addresses a weird sort of mix between how older generations treat the, if you want to call it like the softer generation, but like people who are more in tune with their emotions and like you can't say this to me, you can't say that to me, and then those kids also having a say back at the coach. So I think it's towing that line very well. Yeah, man, I like it. What have you been up to?
Not a whole lot, man. I have been rewatching New Girl again, just
Mm,
cause I like to have at least one sitcom that I am watching at any given time, no matter watching it in between series or movies, just because I like that sort of mental break from watching something. I know uh Invincible has come to an end. I haven't watched the season finale yet. Season two and season three did get renewed, which is pretty awesome, which we talked about
mhm,
during our last Hot or Not episode. I'm very excited about that. But that's really it. I haven't had a lot of time with work and everything's been a little bit crazy.
mhm.
So it's kind of be watching that in the background. I'm excited for some things that are coming out. Like I still haven't had a chance to watch Without Remorse. I know we're super excited about that. Came on Amazon Prime on the 30th of April. The critic reviews hasn't been great, but as we talked about during our bad movie draft, who cares, right? So I'm very excited to watch that.
Mm.
That's pretty much it, man. Not a whole lot is happening on my end. It's sort of the null break in between what like finishing something like Winter Soldier to something new, taking a bit of an emotional break. It was pretty
Mm.
heavy in the finale of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or Captain America and the Winter Soldier, for anyone who's finished the series.
And
But
if
that's
you
pretty much
haven't,
it.
then that's just been spoiled, but that's okay. It's been like
I don't
two
care,
weeks.
man. It's been
If
weeks.
you, yeah,
It's one of the shows you're either in on it right away. If you're off by 2 weeks, it's your fault. Like
yeah,
get
that's
on
fair.
it. It's amazing, especially with like other series coming up pretty soon for Disney
Yeah.
Plus. I do want to address one thing.
Hmm.
Speaking of listening to previous podcasts, I was re-listening to our movie draft podcast, and
Hmm.
I threw a little subtle hint at the beginning of the episode where I mentioned that I'm going to bring up a Denzel movie in the movie draft, and I actually
And then you
didn't.
didn't, yeah.
I didn't. So the reason being is because I love that movie. However, I cheated a little bit and I changed my draft midway through. I was adjusting it just because some of the things were brought up and I was my list. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna re-rank these things. But for anyone who's curious that wondering what movie I was talking about, it's Man on Fire. So if you haven't seen Man on Fire, it is fantastic. It's just no Denzel Washington's play is and is protecting this little girl for this like really high ranked family, and this girl gets kidnapped, played by Elle Fanning. It's a very good cast. It's a very intense show. It's a pretty sorry intense movie. It's one of my favorite Denzel movies. I think this movie that doesn't get recognition not because of the critic score. So I believe the critic score. I don't have it in front of me now, but I believe it got 38% to 40% in Rotten Tomatoes,
38.
and 38. So really, this girl gets kidnapped. Denzel is was responsible to protecting her, and now responsible to find her and bring her back to the family. So if you have a chance to watch that movie, it's fantastic. I'm sure it's somewhere to watch. If it's not somewhere to watch, you can rent it on iTunes. It's fantastic, or Amazon Prime even. Rent it, and I really recommend watching that.
I've seen the cover of this movie. I don't think I've ever seen the actual movie itself, and it looks really,
Mhm.
really intriguing. The cast is good.
Yeah, the cast
Christopher
is
Walk,
great, and
yeah,
oh
nice.
yeah, because yeah, Watkins. I haven't seen that movie in quite some time, but
Mhm.
it's Denzel being Denzel. He's acting like a superstar self in this movie, and I feel like it's a movie everyone should at least watch once if you're a Denzel fan, and don't let the score scare you away. It is a great movie. It's very entertaining. You will get that at least, and you will get Denzel being Denzel. And I don't know what more you can ask for from a Denzel Washington movie when he gets a Denzel moment like he did in Training Day, like he did in Malcolm X, right? And all these fantastic Hurricane, right? All these great
Mhm.
movies he's been in. You will get that from Denzel again. And yeah, check it out, guys.
Cool. Thank you.
With that being said, let's jump into why we're here today. It's our uh, beginning of the month Q&A time. I post these questions out, the question out on our Instagram page. But as always, there's no bad time to submit these questions. So if you ever want to submit these questions, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at the Deep Focus Pod. You can also email us at the Deep Focus Podcast at gmail.com, or even drop the comments on our YouTube channel at the Deep Focus Podcast. We are everywhere. We are in your face. We want to bring as much content as possible, and let us know if you're liking the format we're trying, right? So I know we originally went from like one or two long podcasts a week. Now we're bringing out a bunch of episodes a week. Like last week we dropped 3 episodes, mainly because we had the Oscar reactions. With May the 4th next week, we will try to have a responsive reaction to all the announcements that could potentially happen with that. So if you
Mhm.
like this format, let us know. If you like the old format, let us know. If you just like us, let us know. We know we like to be gassed up a little bit. We like that. And you know what?
It's
Why
about
not?
time.
Right. So let's dive into the questions.
Mhm.
And the first question, it is, I think it's a great question for you, Murad, because you've brought this up many times during our episodes, is a Game of Thrones related question. So you mentioned how many times, I don't know how many times, a great show ended poorly,
Uh-huh.
very controversial ending, not just to the final episode, but to the final season. So the question is, if you could change the ending of Game of Thrones,
Oh, wow.
how would you end it?
How would I end it?
Yeah. Like what upset? Well, my question to you: what upset you the
Mhm.
most of
Okay.
everything in the finale, and what would you change?
The one thing that irked me the most was how the development of Jamie Lannister's character went from, oh my god, this character is getting his dues, he's making his penance, like he's paying for everything that he's done, and then out of nowhere he runs away from Brienne, and then he just goes and dies with his sister at the and like the basement of a cathedral. Like, that's not, like, how do you take like 3 seasons of good development, and like this character, he's finally getting his redemption arc, and you finally start to like him because he pushed a little boy out a window in the first episode. So now, like, he's going
While
through
hooking up
it
with his sister,
while looking at, yeah, while hooking up with his sister, and
we can't.
then
We
and
can't.
then he, and then he just runs away back to her. It's similar to how they treated Barney Stinson's development in How I Met Your Mother. Like they had him go through this giant arc of like understanding what he's done, and becoming a better person, and then they just kill it right off with whatever they did. if it's a who would I want on the throne, I would want Daenerys to still stay on the throne, but I get why they didn't do that. But there were other candidates before they got to Bran, right? So that's one of my biggest anger points with that show was how they treated Jamie's character.
I for me is related to that character development. It wasn't just Jaime Lannister. I feel like there was
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of opportunities where they dropped the ball when it comes to the finishing of the development of the
Mm-hmm.
character, like Jon Snow. Like at the end, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, F off, you killed Daenerys piece, like get out of here, right? Like it was really off. Sansa, I feel like was really the only one we got that full circle of character development where she was this sort of naive young teenage girl who was like, I want to marry a king. This is the life I want, and that's it. And you see her going
Go
through
through
that
hell, dude.
and go to hell and back with
Yeah.
all the stuff she went through with the marriage and everything, and then to really sort of be that essentially the head of
Yeah.
House Stark at the end, which is
Mm-hmm.
pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, like what they did to Jon Snow, I agree with you. I if we weren't going to give the Jon Snow, like I get it, like he made it clear he didn't want the
You don't
throne.
want
He
the
said
throne,
it
yeah.
over and over and over and over again. But what I feel like they should have done was like, hey, you don't have a choice. Like this is your throne. You need to accept it. You need to take it and move on from it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an opportunity where they dropped the ball. I honestly didn't have an issue with anything they've done. Like it's just how it was executed that really bugged me. Right?
I yeah, I'm not sure if this is just like a thing that HBO's done in the past, but I also see them do this with Westworld, where Westworld had
Oh,
great hype and all like why do they like they wanted to make it overly complicated. Like they have to just you don't have to throw in curveballs. Sometimes you can give people what they want and then the show will end better, you know? So I don't know if I had it my way, if I start a character arc, I would want to finish like Sansa and Arya. Arya I would also say had a really good character arc. She saw her sort of destiny through, and that was laid out in like the first episodes when wasn't wanted to be lady, like she wanted to learn how to fight, she wanted to practice bow and
be
arrow,
a warrior. Yeah.
be a warrior, and she went to Bravo. She learned how to be a warrior, the man with no face. And she learned all of those tricks, and then she finished her arc. I thought that was well done, but then everyone else they completely miffed it, like sorry HBO, you gotta do better by your characters.
They try to get too cute towards the end, especially when they stop having a source material to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can definitely tell where the show eventually sort of dropped off. Like it wasn't just the final season. Like
Mm-hmm.
the season prior was like you feel a little bit dropping off. And I have always been in the boat where Game of Thrones is a good show. I've never felt it was great.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the first few seasons it was great, but it had a lot of great moments. It has what like some of the most talked about moments in movie history. And I feel like that's part to do with when the show came out in the era of Twitter, or the era of social media, and an era where you can get information from everywhere and everyone's talking about it. If Deadwood, if 6 Feet Under, if The Wire, even if Breaking Bad came out a little bit later, like it would have had a massive run. Like the biggest reason, in my opinion, Breaking Bad did so well, it was because of Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was a show that came on Netflix. I didn't watch it at the beginning because to me, Bryan Cranston was the dad in Malcolm in the Middle. To
Mm-hmm.
me, Bryan Cranston was the dentist in Seinfeld, right? He converted Judaism strictly for the jokes, right? Like for any Seinfeld fans out there. That's I think part of the air of the popularity was because of when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been amazing. It could have been great, and it definitely was at the peak, like of an apex mountain at one point. But it sucked the way it ended.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still gonna be excited to watch these prequel shows that are coming out about House of Targaryen and anything else that could have come out. I'm gonna give it a chance, like
Mm-hmm.
I did with, like I'm going to, sorry, with How I Met Your Father. Is that it had the ability to be peak at one point? Why not why not think it might happen again? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's very good chance to happen again. Like these going back to sports teams, like if the same people was able to rise a show to a certain level, why can't they do it again? And HBO, it's not like they continue to bring up bad shows. They currently have good shows on their on their programs right now. Like if you're watching Insecure, if you're watching Euphoria,
Mm-hmm.
uh, there's a bunch of other shows like Barry, like another bunch of other shows
Very, yeah.
out right now that people are really into. I think it's a good chance that this could happen again. So yeah,
Hey man, they caught fire once. Why not? They can always catch fire again. You know?
was that a House of Carrion reference
Yeah.
intended?
Yeah.
Cool. As I kick my camera back and while I'm stretching my legs out.
But you got long legs. It's all good.
So I have a couple lighter questions.
Sure.
This should be pretty straightforward. I'm actually curious for this for you, but when it comes to sitcoms, it's funny that I talked about sitcoms earlier. Of all the sitcoms you have ever watched, is there one that you've watched the most?
Yeah, Friends.
That's it, Friends. How many
Simple.
times have you
Yeah.
see Friends?
Honestly, I've seen Friends to the point where I can hear one line from the episode and I can trace back like the next 10 lines and I can tell you what episode it's at. And it's not because the show was really good. Like the show was really good, but also like it wasn't groundbreaking. It wasn't like it has its own problems, of course, but a lot of the shows that I like trace back to, oh, I watched it when I was just learning what good TV was. Like I watched Friends when I was like in grade 9, 10, and I don't have Netflix. It wasn't even on Netflix at the time. And there was this channel called Peachtree TV, and at night they had shows like Friends. They had shows like According to Jim, which I'm not sure if you've seen that, but it's a
That's so
deep cut.
familiar.
Jim Belushi, John Belushi's brother.
Yeah.
He was in a
Oh, right.
remember According to Jim? Crazy
Yeah.
show. But I watched it when I was like, in grade 9, 10, when it would play alongside According to Jim. And it was the summer. I didn't have much to do. So at night, I just sort of set aside like an hour and I would watch Friends and then According to Jim. And I would just watch that on repeat. And when it was on Netflix, I already knew the show enough to watch it. So when I watched it full run, I just kept watching it anytime I had something to do, but I didn't want to just sit there in silence. I would just toss on Friends. And so that's the show for me. What about you? Because I know you're a big sitcom guy.
Yeah, I love my sitcoms. I go
Yeah.
through rotation every year, rewatching every single sitcom.
Yeah.
Like my rotation includes Seinfeld, which is
Hmm.
currently in Canada on Crave TV. I also own all the entire series. I go through The Office at least once a year. I go through Brooklyn Nine-Nine at least once a year, especially since it's a current show that is keep going, and Parks and Recreation. Those
Hmm.
are some of the big shows I continue to rewatch over and
Yeah.
over again.
Can I ask you a question?
Hmm.
When you say sitcoms, are you talking about sitcoms with like a live studio audience and like a laugh track, or like because like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I'm not like, is that considered a sitcom or is that only reserved for like if there's like an audience? Because I'm genuinely curious about this. I've never actually thought about it.
Sitcom doesn't that has nothing to do with the audience or not. The situational comedy. That's really what sitcom is, right?
Oh, interesting.
So that's what sitcom is. So I don't believe you need a laugh track
Mm,
to prove a show is hilarious, right? Especially now, like that's why The Office is so groundbreaking because it's one of the first great shows to not have a laugh track. Um, and people continue to do that. And God bless NBC for keep putting out hot product. Like you have, like NBC brought out The Office. After Fox stupidly canceled Brooklyn Nine, it picked up Brooklyn Nine. You had Parks and Recreation.
mhm.
You had 30 Rock,
30 Rock, phenomenal
right?
show.
Right. So I personally, I wasn't a huge fan of 30 Rock, but I can accept its brilliance. I acknowledge how that show is popular. I understand why it's popular. Is for some reason I just wasn't a huge fan of that, and the reason why I wasn't a huge fan of that, all these sitcoms for me has a thing in common is a character I am obsessed with, and I could requote for the rest of my life. Like this Ron Swanson and Parks and Rec, like that. I go through like YouTube clips of watching Ron Swanson quotes, and that's it. The scenes I could do hours of YouTube just watching his stuff.
Mhm.
I have done hours of stuff of that. I could do hours of watching Michael Scott go through his scenes. I could also respect the back and forth pranks between Dwight and Jim over and over again. So to roll back a little bit and talk about the most watched sitcom, it's gonna be a toss up. I have to really consider, but it'll be between The Office and Seinfeld.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because Seinfeld, similar to what you were mentioning earlier, like it's one of the things where I never set a time for like set aside time for it, but once it popped up, like I'm watching it, and every show, every sitcom I've ever watched, I could tell you in the beginning of the first like couple minutes, okay, this is the episode. I know exactly where it's going and what's happening.
Mhm.
And you mentioned this during our bad movie draft was they were very quotable. They have really like memorable scenes where I can never like forget about. But yeah, so Seinfeld is definitely, I'll say Seinfeld probably has a slight edge when it comes to the most watched.
Mhm.
And then like I'll say Office and Parks and Rec are aligned. I Yeah, I sort of aligned and Brooklyn and Nine really underneath that. But that's when it comes to the order, when it comes to all the shows I've watched. It took me a while
Mhm.
to get into The Office, mainly because like the first season, I think a lot of people was like,
It was intolerable. When I watched
it
it
was kind of
first, I
hard
thought
to
it was
watch.
intolerable.
It
Yeah.
was Michael Scott, but then like a 40-year-old virgin, I think saved The Office because Judd Apatow really tapped into what Steve Carell can do as an actor,
Mhm.
and that movie was filmed between season 1 and season 2 of
The
The
Office.
Office.
Mhm.
So you can see that sort of dynamic change in his comedy type for Steve Carell.
Mhm.
And it really, I feel like, saved the show and took it to a level where it can't be touched again. Like the show ended when 2010.
2010 or 11.
When did The Office end?
2013. Wow.
2013, and we're talking about it
Whoa.
8 years later. As
Yeah.
like Netflix last during the shutdown, it was the most streamed show of everything on any streaming service, right? And unluckily for the US, it's no longer on Netflix. You have to go to Peacock to get it. In Canada, we're still lucky; we still have it on Netflix. So I'm gonna keep binging it. I bought it just in case we
Yeah.
did lose it. It was like $30 Canadian on iTunes when I bought it. Like they dropped the price down by half, so I bought it right away just in case. So I'm all over that. But yeah, man, I go to sitcom. I love sitcoms. I can
Yeah.
never get
Yeah.
enough of it. Most rewatched movie.
I don't know. Wow. Most rewatched movie. I would have to say Back to the Future for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I said it before as well, but I think I've seen a good I think I've seen that movie, sorry, around 15 times, like that whole series. And anytime I start with the first one, I go through the next two within like the next few days. And so I make it a point to at least marathon those movies every year, if not 8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about your most
Mm,
rewatched?
this is tough, actually.
It is because you have to not think about it.
I think I mentioned on the podcast before. I wish it like it stated like what movies I watched the most. Uh, it's gonna be a toss up because I'm gonna. It has to be one of the old buddy cop movies that I
Hmm.
watched all the time growing up. So I want to say it probably if the if I had to pick one, it probably will be either like Lethal Weapon or Lethal Weapon 2
Okay.
of the most rewatched movie. And then like right behind that is the like Beverly Hill Cops or Die Hard. I'll probably say Die
Wow.
Hard.
Yeah. Forgot
Die Hard
about.
number two. Die Hard number two. And we'll say Beverly Hill. Then like fourth is Fast Five.
It's
Which
Fast Five, the one where Paul Walker's character drives off. Brian.
no, that's Fast Seven.
That
Fast Seven is his last movie.
seven.
Fast Seven
Whoa.
last movie. Fast Five is in Brazil where The Rock is first introduced
Oh, that's
in the
right.
series, and it becomes that's where the series really takes off and becomes a heist sort of series.
Hmm.
But yeah, those are some of mine.
Dang.
Next question. Oh, this will be a fun one. I think you like this one. Out of all the existing movies, which one do you wish you could be in?
Damn it. That was the question I was gonna ask you as well. Like movie universe?
It says,
Uh,
it says any movie, so it could be whatever you want. Play around with it. So if you could pick up,
mhm,
it could be universe, it could be a singular movie, it could be whatever you want. If you could pick one thing to be in,
mhm.
one movie, what would it be?
I've thought about this question a lot.
Mhm.
Not because I saw it, but like even before, because this is a question I often ask myself. I would think if I could be in a movie or like a world, like a movie universe, I would have to choose La La Land. And the only reason why is because it's to me, it's such a good callback to old Hollywood and like especially old musicals. And I absolutely adore jazz, like as an art form. And so if I could be Ryan Gosling's best friend in that movie and we could just sit there talk about jazz all the time and just drink coffee and play piano, I think that'd be really cool. Yeah, and I think like everything about that movie just made me feel happy, and then like crushed my soul, but then it made me feel happy again, And I listened to that soundtrack. I want to say it like I listened to that full thing. I have it on vinyl at least once a week, and it just makes me feel happy all the time. So it'd be that one.
Okay.
Hmm.
For me, this is I have to think. I need to talk this out. So it would have to be a comedy for sure. Like I would
Yeah.
not be in a comedy. It would be a toss up between Knocked Up,
Oh
40,
wow. Yeah.
40-year-old virgin, or
Yeah.
This Is the End. The reason This Is the End is part of that's because of the amount of people that's in that movie, like and like the cast, everyone's
Yeah.
in that. The who's in that.
Rihanna's in it for a little bit.
Yeah, like everyone's in that,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
but I would probably have to go with 40-year-old virgin.
Mm.
I have to go that to be with just because I just want to see those guys cook.
Hmm.
Like we have Steve Carell right before his apex, before he peaked, like really gets to stardom. You have Paul Rudd still doing his thing. Something about just Judd Apatow movie, and he has this one signature thing he does every movie. And I don't know if everyone's ever kicked on it, but picked up on it. But the one thing he does in every movie, he has a scene where it's unscripted and letting those guys just talk and
I
go
did.
at it. He has it. He has it in every movie. If you watch every movie has sort of that one scene where the friends are just hanging out and talking. And a lot of those times, those are unscripted and letting them go at each other. So I believe the poker scene in 40 Virgin like is one of those things where like just let them cook. Same thing with the waxing scenes, let them do this thing. Like it just over and over again, he allows these comedians be great on their own without having
Hmm.
anything sort of scripted. Like you see that in what's that one movie with Amy Schumer, like
Trainwreck.
dating sorry?
Trainwreck?
I can't remember.
That's the only Amy Schumer movie that I've seen. I wasn't a big fan of it.
It's
Is
a
it a
John.
Jet?
There's one with John Cena and
Yeah,
LeBron
yeah,
James.
Trainwreck, Trainwreck,
Trainer.
Trainwreck.
Okay, yeah. So that's the one. Like even like that, you see a little bit of that in Bridesmaids. Like I know he wasn't directing it, but like he was involved in that. Like when
Hmm.
they're talking in the diner, so he continues to have that and let them cook. So I'd love to see Judd Apatow just really work, and you could see like I'm not sure if you know, but like, as a teenager, Judd Apatow was on In Living Color, not as an actual person, like, and that he was in part of the
Hmm.
cast or part of the crew, but he as a teenager would skip school and just watch it, watch these guys work, and you can see that skill translate into his movies where a lot of sketch comedy and Lane's got unscripted and letting them work and clearly works as these comedians. So I'll 40-year virgin for sure. You have to be in that. Just be in any room with them. When it comes to like I could be a background like smart tech rep or something, but definitely a movie I would want to be in. If you could interview anyone in the film industry, who and why?
I'm gonna ask you to clarify that a little bit. Like just you, would it be someone who's passed on or still alive today? What do you think?
I say let's go current. Let's
Current?
go current. Let's go current. Currently alive.
Currently alive, I'd have to interview Conan O'Brien.
Okay.
Only because he's had such a long run. And I listen to his podcast and he talks about these stories. Like he was talking about like how he met Dave Chappelle in the early 90s. And I just want to know all of his stories. Like I know he
Yeah.
shares a little bit of it, but I think he has so much untapped stories that I would just like to get to the bottom of. Recorded or not, I just like to have a sit down conversation with him. And he's the reason why I got into podcasting. So like the first thing I would say is, hey, thank you for everything. He's probably one of my favorite late night personalities and just a person in general. He's this weird tall aberration of a man who just sort of walks around with the shock of red hair and just makes people laugh, and I think that's awesome. So definitely have to be him.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm not surprised by that answer. For me, it would, if it's an interview that would go probably public and like I actually have an interview sort of set up, I'll probably go Will Smith, right?
Good
Just
choice.
because I should have mentioned Will Smith, Fresh Prince of Bel Air is one of my favorite sitcoms too. I can't
No,
believe I
that's I
forgot about
forgot.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has to be Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Like the prince himself has to have Will Smith. I feel like any sort of conversation you have with them, you take something away. Like Will Smith seems like a guy where if you talk to him afterwards, you want to like run through a wall or like climb a mountain or something like that's because it's so inspiring just talking to him. So I would definitely would love to pick his brain just about everything. I originally was gonna say Donald Glover only because
Mm.
he's so secretive with his life.
Mm-hmm.
I just right like and so I know he wouldn't share things publicly, so it wouldn't be an interview format. Like that'd be more of a hang than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be an interview. I would have to say Will Smith, just
What
because.
if what if I was to throw a wrench and say it doesn't have to be current, someone who's passed on? Because I have two that come to mind. I'm just wondering what your two. I have three that come to mind.
As passed on.
Yeah.
You gotta keep in mind though, like they will
Oh,
probably not share a lot of information with you. The people I'm thinking of, like, there's not a chance where Frank Sinatra will give me all the deets in his
I was
inner
thinking
outings,
that
right?
too.
But
Yeah.
like, it's an interview. He's not gonna tell you
Yeah.
shit. So that's why I'm not gonna pick Frank Sinatra. Frank
So
Sinatra
I
is the person I would talk with. So if I had to pick someone who passed on, I'll
so
say
I so that
probably
so I would make that amendment. Just a normal like coffee shop conversation, nothing off the books, everything.
Frank Sinatra will be an honorable mention, but I'd have to say Robin Williams.
Oh wow.
I would have to say Robin Williams just because I'm
Okay.
just right. Like I would love to know just everything about him.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would bring up maybe James Gandolfini,
Mm,
right? But Robin Williams has to be. I gotta stick with my comedy roots, right? I love. I think comedians are the most talented people on the planet when it comes to the movie industry and the film industry and the TV industry, just because their adaptability going into drama and doing other things, like it's their timing, their cadences
mm,
has always been on point. That's why a lot of people struggle going from drama into comedy, but vice versa. It's been a lot easier transition. It's
mm-hmm.
not foolproof, but I feel like if comedy is going to something else, a little more feasible versus the other way around because of the back and forth and comedic side of it. It's very hard to for someone to pick up.
Fair enough. I got you.
How about you, man? You since you brought
If
that question up.
only reason I brought it up is because I would love to talk to Audrey Hepburn. Uh,
Okay.
Audrey Hepburn, James Dean. We've already talked about Sinatra, so I won't say it again. And John Lennon, I think would be three really cool people to chat with. It's because I
But
think they
don't you can't cop out, man. I gotta pick one.
pick one. It would have to be John Lennon. I think he would have the most fascinating stories.
So next question is a very interesting one, and actually, I don't mind starting to answer that first. But the question is, how about your take on hidden gems on streaming platforms that are in a language besides English? So essentially, asking us our take on non-English content on
Hmm.
streaming websites, and I don't mind starting off with this because I feel like that's becoming a bigger and bigger with streaming platforms. Like I know through Amazon Prime Video, there's a ton and a ton of like Bollywood and Punjabi content on there. When it
Mhm.
comes to old and new, at least I think they're new. I never heard. I haven't seen them before. I assume that I haven't seen it before. They're new just because. And again, I mentioned it during our last Q&A. I haven't watched a Bollywood or Punjabi movie for like a new one for a very long time.
Mhm.
You could see Netflix going that route, especially with a lot of the anime stuff's coming out, and just foreign language stuff. Stuff's wrong with content in general is definitely a growing aspect of the film industry, especially the last couple of years with you know Minari doing so well at the Golden Globes this year and last year with Parasite,
Parasite, yeah.
right? And then I'm sure there's been other movies in the past that have done really well, but back-to-back years of this shows that there is an audience for it, and I wouldn't be surprised if this takes a massive step forward, even going forward with streaming platforms like Crave or slash HBO Max, or when it
Mhm.
comes to Amazon Prime Video, who keeps bringing out these great content. They even have some original TV series. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but they have original TV series in Punjabi, like on
Mhm.
Amazon Prime, right? Like
Mhm.
it's like sitcom dating types, like very forward thinking sort of stuff. And last year, like the Netflix came out with their own sort of reality show about like how arranged marriages are when it comes to the Punjabi culture. I can't remember the name of that show, but it was it
There's
was
also another reality show, Bollywood Wives, which is very interesting to watch.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I know those technically some of them aren't foreign languages, but it just shows that multicultural stuff is becoming a massive thing
Right.
when it comes to streaming services, and I do believe there's an opportunity for it to keep growing. And I think right now the source material in general is there, and the what they can accomplish with that is quite unlimited and quite large. So yeah, so that's my take. I think it's a growing industry, like a
Mhm.
growing industry when it comes to that content, and I could see a massive spike happening next 1 to 2 years when it comes to having more original content on all streaming services, except besides right now Amazon Prime. Because I think Amazon Prime right now is running away with everything else.
Mhm. Yeah, I I'm looking at it from a creator perspective and as an artist perspective. I think they're giving these people these giving these creators who don't often live the life that everyone in the shows live. So like I would love to live the lifestyle of like friends in that universe, but I know that's the lifestyle that I can't really ever get to. And when you start giving creators the opportunity to start expressing those emotions, it's you're only going to do better. Like you can never have enough stories being told. I'm a big advocate of that. And I think everything deserves to be made and everything deserves to be put out. So I love the fact that they're giving these artists room to grow. Absolutely. Great
Awesome, man.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, really good
Really
question.
good question.
This again, I'll go with an easy one and with a hard one. Then I think that'd
Hmm.
be it. Well, we had a lot
Yeah.
of questions today. I don't think we didn't have time to
Thank
go through all of it.
thank you everybody for those questions.
Yeah. Next question is very similar to our bad movie draft. So I won't be surprised if the draft from last week aligns with this week. But what is your guilty pleasure movie and why?
I would definitely my guilty pleasure movie, I would say would have to be um I don't know, Superbad comes to mind.
How's that guilty
Uh
pleasure though?
I don't know. Like it's
I'm assuming guilty pleasure, not because guilty pleasure is sorry, super bad. It's highly acclaimed, so I wouldn't count that
is it
as
acclaimed? I never looked into
has
it.
really high reviews. It's
Oh
considered one of the
really?
best comedies of all time.
Oh really? Oh well done. I didn't know that. Then I would if it's more guilty pleasure, then I would say I don't know. Just go with it. The Adam Sandler movie with Jennifer Aniston. Like it's funny and it's got uh Adam Sandler doing his I want to say one of his better comedy works, and then he did Uncut Gems, which is amazing. So yeah, I would have to say just go with it.
And by the way, Superbad got 88% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's considered again one of the greatest like comedies ever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
did
man.
not know that. Good stats. I mean, it's well deserved, but I also all of the movies from our not all of them, but like a lot of the movies that we brought up last week also deserved higher than what they got. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Oh, guilty pleasure. Okay, so I have to think about this. Guilty pleasure.
Is it like the
I
movie
would.
that you don't want others to see that you're watching? Is it like is that what it like? It's kind of like hush hush. Like I only do this when no one.
I think so.
Mm.
I kind of think so. Because I can't think of no movie I didn't mind that a lot of people like. I'm gonna before I bring it up, I want to
Look at the
look
score.
look at the score because I
Yeah.
feel like the movie doesn't get really talked about a lot. Like obviously Tokyo Drift is one of those movies for sure. But a movie I didn't mention last week during our draft, but I'll mention it today, is I really enjoyed Hancock.
I
Just
don't
a
think I've seen that past the first. Like I just watched it one time and I never watched
like
it again.
I liked it. I enjoy
Yeah.
it. If it's on TV, it's one of those things like, oh, okay, I'll watch this. Like, oh, I like Will Smith. I like
Hmm.
Charlie Theron. I like I just enjoyed it. It's
Hmm.
fine. It's a movie I had no issues really watching. It'll
Hmm.
come on TV, like, okay, I'm in. I'll put it on on streaming service if it's there once in a while just to watch it. So I would probably make that. I have a lot of guilty pleasure movies though, like a lot. Like if everyone knows by now my taste in movies, I love everything, and there's a lot of movies I really enjoy, and regardless of the reviews or not, but that's up there. Oh, here's a good one, Swordfish.
What?
There, Swordfish. That's
What
my
the
guilty pleasure movie.
what the hell, swordfish?
It's John Travolta, Halle Berry, and Hugh Jackman. It is a hacker movie. It's so
What
bad.
movie?
That's a deep cut movie.
That is a deep cut. Huh. Don Cheadle?
Yeah, man, it's a loaded cast. It's 20 years. Yeah, you know
Andrea
what?
De Matteo?
Swordfish.
Wow.
Swordfish. I had to put in swordfish. I
Interesting.
take my word back.
I've
Yeah, I
never
had to
heard of this
swordfish.
movie.
So if you have guys haven't watched this is a super deep cut. So Halle Berry, Don Cheadle, Hugh Jackman, John Travolta. I'm pretty sure this is pre-Wolverine. Hugh
Yeah, this would
Jackman.
be 2001.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2001. Okay. So with what that movie's about, essentially John Travolta is a super duper villain who is trying to like break into a system and rob a bank. And Hugh Jackman is this like ultra crazy hacker, right? So when hacker movies used to be still a thing, plays this hacker, and for John Travolta essentially gives him an opportunity to start fresh with his life because Hugh Jackman was just released from jail. So
Hmm.
he was like, "Hey, his opportunity to to have your daughter full custody because he's a divorced, obviously, uh, from going to jail, and is given an opportunity to make a lot of money, take care of his daughter and everything." So Hugh Jackman is tempted to sort of take that, but at the same time, like Don Cheadle, I believe, plays an FBI agent in that, keeping track of everything. Oh, it's really cool. I enjoyed it. John Travolta, like going over the top as always. It's fun. I love it.
Hmm.
It's up there for sure. I freaking love that movie. That movie's
I'm
fantastic.
gonna I'm gonna throw in one more if you don't mind,
Mm.
because I forgot about it until I looked it up. But have you seen The Losers? If you
Yeah, it's
haven't,
fantastic. The movie's great. I
okay.
think
So,
someone commented about it
oh,
on
did they?
our one of our last during the movie draft, bad movie draft.
Oh, interesting. So
Yeah,
that was my first exposure to Idris Elba when I watched that movie. And I
yeah,
mean, the cast itself was really good. And who doesn't like a good, hey, we're gonna turn on the CIA type story. So I thought it was really cool. To me, I'd never heard about it until my one of my cousins was like, "Hey, you have to watch this movie," and I really enjoyed it. And I don't see it being talked about as much, but I thought it was fantastic. So that would
yeah,
I would also say is a guilty pleasure.
yeah. I definitely enjoyed that. No, it's Chris Evans, young Chris Evans in that. You have
Young
Idris
Chris Evans,
Elba.
yeah.
You have Zendaya in that. No, not Zendaya. What's her name? I'm mixing the
Zoe
names up.
Saldana.
Zeldana, sorry,
Yeah.
and a few other people in that. I enjoyed it. It's
Mhm.
fun for one people wondering what the movie's about. Essentially, there's a group of mercenaries that gets framed, and they are dead. So the bad guys think they're dead and trying to come back and sort of just no clear their names. Very typical storyline. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
probably why the reason didn't work out because it's done so many times and there's so many great versions of it. And that's why I don't think the movie got a sequel. It was supposed to get a sequel,
Mm-hmm.
never did. But I'm still holding hope on the sequel, but who knows? But good movie.
Good movie.
All right, Matt, we're gonna go to the last question. We have so many good ones. So I am going to take create a blockbuster film with an
Mm-hmm.
unlimited budget, story, and who do you cast in it? This is gonna be a long one. That's
Who
what
did
she
you
said.
cast in it? Well done. Um, I would love to see a proper Beatles biopic, not just someone who makes the Beatles songs because the Beatles don't exist anymore. Uh,
Don't get me started on that
I
movie.
know. I mean, just do it. Well, I'm not sure why they're not doing it. Like the Beatles have one of the most historic runs of an artist from that time period, and they had the biggest influence. Without them, a lot of without them, a lot of Eastern music would not have been exposed to the West, right? And so they were going through that phase of like modernizing, like having sitar in the music, or when they went to India and they stayed in the ashram with Ravi Shankar. So I don't know. They've had such a fascinating life. Just tell a good story about it.
That's easier said than done because for these biopics to happen, like access needs to be given, and I don't
Mhm.
know how much access the Beatles, like what happened in the inner circles of the Beatles would be exposed. So that's the thing. Like a lot of it, the one thing about biopics and documentaries that I love for me to be a good one, I need to learn more information,
Mhm.
right? So who would you cast in that though? Like if you had to pick, right? Like if you had to cast in that,
I would think of Eddie Redmayne as George Harrison. Uh, um, I don't know. There's a ton of British talent that would. Yeah, I mean, I can't cast it right now because yeah, I can't cast it. Like that's a very tough question, but that is one that I would like to see, and that's one I've been wanting to see for a while. And if you give me till next week, till next podcast, I would say I can cast it for you,
no
right?
chance. Maybe next Q&A, but
Yeah,
this is a
next yeah.
one-time thing. No pressure. You pitch a movie to me now, man. Come on.
Okay, so in a world, no, but like, how do you not tell a great story about one of the best bands of all time? Like, whether
That's
you
easy.
like them or not,
There's no access. Like the access is the issue,
right?
right? Like
But
that's a roadblock. Like I don't know if that's part of the thing because I'm getting a limited amount of money and essentially I can cast whoever I want,
that's the thing. I have a
right?
limited amount of money, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but like, you think the Beatles will be like, hey, we could use money? You think they're like you know what I mean?
no, but like when Matt Weiner used "Tomorrow Never Dies" in that one episode of Mad Men, he paid like I think it was 500 or 50,000 or $500,000. I'm not sure if there was one less zero or if there was one more zero, but like people still want their stuff, right? Like as soon as they dropped on Apple Music and they dropped on Spotify and their discog was allowed out, that was a big deal, right? So people are wanting to know these stories. Hell, I did like a 14-page paper on their like 10-year run. I had more pages in that paper than they had years of their career, but they had such a storied career and I want to learn as much about it as I can. And I know they're doing a documentary about it very, very soon. So it is possible because they have the footage, right? And if you're going to make a movie where the Beatles don't exist, why not make a movie where they do exist and then also talk about the impact that they had? Because I've spoken to people who were at their 1964 show at Empire Stadium in Vancouver, and they were saying, yeah, we couldn't hear them. People were screaming so much, but it was one of the best days of their lives. Right?
Yeah.
So if they have that much of an impact, tell that story because if not, you risk losing it. Right? And I would also say the same thing with I love biopics. I'm not sure if you could tell, but like a good Sinatra biopic or like a good biopic on Audrey Hepburn's life. I'm infatuated with the time period that I wasn't allowed to experience or able to experience. So yeah, just give me all of it, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Like this again, like getting the access for sure. Like with Frank Sinatra, like it's very hard just
Mm-hmm.
to get the access, especially now it's passed. But it depends how much information we can get. For me, is just I'm gonna go a little bit lighter
Mm-hmm.
on that. Like, give me a real Civil War from Marvel with all the characters in it. If rights or anything like that was non-play, like keep all the characters and actors the same. But for the longest time, I have always wanted a like a Spider-Man Spider Universe like real life movie, but it feels like we'll
Mm-hmm.
be getting that next movie. That's some. This is a question where like now kind of regret bringing this up only because I can't figure out exactly what exactly I want from this.
Right.
All right, like of all the power and all the role, like what can I bring to the table? There's a lot of biopics I will love, but I will never bring out. Like we like a Tupac biopic. Well, not something I'd bring up because Tupac's like his energy is very hard to match.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there's an actor out there that can match that. That at least I know of. So I don't know if that's the case anymore. He's had documentaries. Obviously, we have a Mike Tyson documentary biopic already coming out with starring Jamie Foxx. That is now a series instead of a movie now, which I'm very excited for.
Mm-hmm.
So there are content that's coming out already that I'm very excited for when it comes to if I had the budget and everything. I am actually happy Jamie Foxx is playing Mike Tyson's because I think the mannerisms he's able to match, and we see him in the do so well in a biopic before with Ray. He was like that another great bio
Phenomenal. Yeah.
phenomenal job. So if anything, for the pick one, and again, I know we won't get the full access. I would love to see a Vince McMahon biopic,
Oh wow, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I know that something's been talked about already, and I think the rumors had Bradley Cooper linked to it. But as Vince McMahon, I know we're getting Chris Hemsworth as Hulk Hogan in a Hulk
Mm-hmm.
Hogan biopic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to see a good, gritty wrestling biopic. Like that's like with access is not denied for anything, which is hard because WWE likes to keep things tight because we know things happen behind the scene that we're not aware of. And if you can see that growth from Vince McMahon from doing a local thing to blowing it up, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. They've allowed more access. I'm not sure if you follow on the WWE network, but they're definitely allowing more and more access into like people blowing that whole like facade wide open. I mean, they allowed like Chris Jericho on Steve Austin's podcast, but like he wrestles for a different promotion and he was able to talk about the other promotion, which all like was the thing that was never done. Right. So if anything, I think the time is now to quote John Cena. Look at the look on your face. I can't believe I made that happen.
All right, man. That's enough questions, man. We
Yeah.
taken up everyone's time enough for
Hmm.
today. We have a ton of questions left over for next time around, guys. As always, thank you. Stay safe. Take us off, Murad.
Gonna keep it light. Take it easy. Peace.
Peace.